traveling around a lot. I think he might travel more than me.
Nomad capitalist.
The nomad capitalist.
The nomad capitalist.
There are no rational arguments to support the ideas which created this country.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is the future of freedom and opportunity. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report.
From Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Hello, traders. My name is Andrew Henderson. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report, nomadcapitalist.com, and on radio stations all across the land of the free. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here on the radio with a lot going on right now in the world. Later on in this show, we're going to get to a very special interview with James Turk from Gold Money. He's going to tell us about some of the things he sees in the precious metals market and make sure that you are protected. He's got a very interesting way of dealing with your savings. We're going to talk to him later. So much going on. We're going to try and get to all of it here. Argentina defaulting on their debt. More and more people renouncing their citizenship in the land of the free as FATCA now 1 month in effect. More and more people, and I've seen this personally, having trouble opening bank accounts. It happened to me in Hong Kong just last month, where it is still possible to open a bank account, but lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. And so the ability to be a U.S. person, as we call them here on this show, and live around the world and invest, it's becoming harder and harder. This, of course, is why we talk about escape hatches, but I wanted to talk about something very specific today, and I'm going to get your opinion. Because I've promised in the past that we will read some of the comments that we get in our email inbox. And I'd like to do that on a future show. But today I want to solicit your opinion on a topic that you may have read about on our site at nomadcapitalist.com, and that's this. I'm here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I've rated Kuala Lumpur, or KL, as they call it here, one of the best cities to live in Southeast Asia. Now, Southeast Asia is, in my opinion, one of the hottest places in the world, not only to live affordably, but to witness one of the greatest economic transformations, I believe, in the modern age. We frequently talk on this show about Cambodia, and I've mentioned it many times on our website. We talked about it at our Passport to Freedom conference. We talk a lot about places like Cambodia. Vietnam, I believe, is underrated. I recently did a video in the Nomad Society for our members talking about living in Vietnam. And if you're looking to live in a place that's happening, lots of options, lots of things to do, not that expensive, you can hire people on the cheap, live on the cheap, witness great things happening. Vietnam should be on your radar too. All over this region, of course, I realize there are some problems going on in China right now. I still believe that the Chinese culture will survive and be very, very strong in our lifetimes. But Southeast Asia, lots of exciting things happening. Lots of opportunities for very little money. But I've said Kuala Lumpur, if you've got a little bit more money, if you're not looking to live on $1,000 a month, this is the place that you can come, and there's fantastic entertainment, dining, all of it. Great place to live. Maybe not quite as good of a place to start a business, but Kuala Lumpur, great place to live. You've got access to multiple airlines flying all over the world. I saw a flyer for AirAsia the other day, the low-cost carrier. You can fly from here to Sydney for $110 each way. $110. Can you imagine that? 8-hour flight. So there's a lot of good things happening here in Kuala Lumpur, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And I'd like to get your feedback on this to Andrew at nomadcapitalist.com. That's our email address. It's Andrew, my name, Andrew, at nomadcapitalist.com. And by the way, Debbie is going to be sifting through all the emails, and she's going to send me all of your comments. But, well, those of you who might want to send us something else, you know who you are, and she'll be screening that out. But I'm looking forward to your comments on this. I wrote earlier this week on our site that I have decided to set up shop personally here in Kuala Lumpur. I've been here several times. I've been all over Southeast Asia. I've been all over Asia in general. From South Korea, Japan, mainland China, all the way down. For me, this is the place to be. And KL is a great place to settle down. So I'm establishing a little base here personally. Our business is not based here. Our business is based in Hong Kong. But I will be based here. And I will be able to freely travel all around the region. Later this year to places like India. To the Middle East, I'll be in Dubai and in Kuwait and Qatar. It's a 45-minute hop down to Singapore. I can easily from there be in London, any number of places in Europe, Africa. Very, very easy and very affordable to get to all the places that I need to report to you from on things that are happening and on opportunities for investment. And so I've said, you know what? I'm a perpetual traveler. I follow flag theory, the idea of diversifying your living base, your business base, all of your different parts of your life in business. I'm fully on board with flag theory, and that's what we talk about, of course, at Nomad Capitalist. But what I want your opinion on is the idea of being a perpetual traveler and what that means to you. And when you go back to the origins of flag theory, it was originally three flag theory. The idea was to live somewhere where you didn't earn income, where you didn't have to pay tax on your worldwide income. A place like Malaysia, a place like Singapore, Panama, Nicaragua. Many of the places that we talk about as new safe havens here, they do not tax your worldwide income. They tax money that you make in the country. I do not make any money in Malaysia. I don't have a Malaysian business. I don't have an office here. And I really don't intend to. I just like living here. It ticks a lot of the boxes for me personally. And so I'm following flag theory, and I'm protecting myself. And in addition to other residencies, I may work towards the Malaysian residency, which is very easy to get. You put some money in a bank account, and you're done. Now, the reason I ask this question is because there are a lot of people out there in the community who basically live out of a suitcase. They're on the road every day, and I've done that. I've done that for years, where I've just gone around and gone from place to place to place to place, dozens of countries in a year, and I'll continue to visit dozens of countries in a year. But I'll be doing so from a base of operations here in Malaysia. Rather than lugging around a suitcase with me with 6 months of clothing, 6 months of suits, ties, shorts, pants, whatever the weather in the places I'm going to calls for, rather than lugging around a suitcase and having to live out of that suitcase, I will simply pack a suitcase with whatever it is I need for the next 3 days, week, 2 weeks, whatever it may be for where I'm going to research. I'll punch up Uber on my smartphone. I will get shuttled down to the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. I'll get in a plane. I'll go where I need to go. And then when I'm done, I'll come back. And I will relax and retreat to my apartment overlooking the Petronas Towers. And I'm curious because so many people in this business have decided to take the tack of being, of basically being caricatures. Now, I understand the mystique of being someone who goes from one country to the next every 2 days. If that's what you want to do, God bless you. I watch James Bond movies. I watch Burn Notice. I like spy movies. And I understand the appeal of that. I've been there, I've done it. Others who want to continue, fantastic. I'll be doing that part of the year. But I've decided to come out because I am a transparent guy. I talk about what I'm really doing, and I share that with you. For better or for worse. I've decided that I like having a nice walk-in closet to hang all of my clothes. I like having a comfortable bed in a bedroom that I got to put my own little touches on, my own decor. I like being able to have a big refrigerator with food that I stock in there. If I want to cook one night, I enjoy that. Sometimes I just want to sit on my couch and look out the window and look on to a city that I'm familiar with, and I can appreciate the view no matter how long I live there. And I think a lot of us are like that. I think a lot of us like some sense of familiarity, where we have a place where we live, we know where to go to get the best Indian food in town, we know the best dry cleaner, we know all the things that we need on a day-to-day basis. We don't have to hunt around. I personally believe that I can do you, the listeners, and the readers of NomadCapitalist.com, the members of the Nomad Society, the people coming to our next Passport to Freedom conference in Cancun, I believe I can do all of you a better service by having a home base, by living in an apartment with really, really fast Wi-Fi, 100 megs per second Wi-Fi here in Kuala Lumpur, one of the fastest in the world. I believe that I can do you a better service by having that and being in a familiar setting and being able to do more work for you. Being able to have a room that I just set up and we do videos in that room. Being able to just to have access to all those things and to be able to provide you more great information, and then, when warranted, go out onto the road, whether it's spending 10 days meeting with financial gurus and investment guys in India. Or later in September, we're having a Nomad Society event in Hong Kong. We're meeting up with some very smart guys there. Later this year, I'm planning on being in Laos, looking at a very lucrative investment that I've already shared a little bit about. Other places around the world. I believe that's how I can better serve you. Now, here's what I'm interested in knowing. Let's just get down to brass tacks. Here's what I'd like your feedback on. What do you think about the philosophy of a perpetual traveler having a base? Is it still a perpetual traveler? I would argue the answer is yes. And we wrote an article on this. It was on Monday. We've already had a few people comment with their thoughts. And I think most people so far have agreed with me that yes, a perpetual traveler doesn't have to be someone who's bouncing from one continent to the next every 3 days. They can be someone who has some kind of hub, and they go to and from there as needed. And that the key aspect, in my opinion, of being a perpetual traveler is using flag theory to your benefit. Using it to minimize, if not eliminate, your taxes. Using it to better your life in any number of ways. I think a lot of people, and maybe some of you listening, maybe this is you, you're afraid to apply flag theory to your life. You're afraid to diversify your investments. You're afraid to bank offshore. You're afraid to invest in some other country. You're afraid to live somewhere else. You're afraid to try and get a passport somewhere else because it all sounds like something that a spy would be doing, not a normal human being. Now, I don't believe that's true. And because some people think that, I always advise that if you're just getting started, you ease into it. One thing I've told some people is, if you're not sure if you want to live overseas, tell yourself you're taking a 6-month vacation. If you run a business, take the business with you. Put it on a laptop. Take it with you. Go and live in 3 different countries, 4 different countries, 6 different countries, 1 a month. And figure out where you like. And if you hate it, then you can always go back to wherever it is you live now. You can always go back to what you're doing now. But if you like it, the transition will be that much easier. But I think a lot of people get hung up on this perpetual traveler terminology, that they have to be constantly on the go. They have to be living in one hotel room and then 2 days later packing up. I don't believe that's the case. Now, if you have a copy of our Passport to Freedom DVD, or if you're a member of the Nomad Society, you have all the video from our last event in Las Vegas. And we had a whole panel on this for an hour, and all of the people on the stage, I think, from Pete Cisco, Jeff Berwick, myself, were self-proclaimed perpetual travelers. Not because none of us have a home that is bigger than our other homes, but because we're constantly on the go and we're using the principles of flag theory. Do you agree with me? Do you agree that that's the definition of a perpetual traveler? And I'd like to know, are you willing to establish a life as a PT using that definition? Are you someone who has thought that to be a perpetual traveler, you had to be some kind of cartoon character who people would think was working for the CIA? He's traveling so often. Is the idea that being a perpetual traveler means you can have some home and just bounce around, does that make you more interested in living this lifestyle? That's the lifestyle I've decided to live right now, not because I don't like the travel, not because I don't like the go, but because I believe that we have a growing business that's growing very rapidly and a lot of interest from a lot of people, and I need to be in a place where I know what's going on, where I can familiar surroundings every once in a while. If you run a business, you might feel the same way. You can travel all you want. I've traveled for years, and I've run businesses, and including an $11 million business before I started Nomad Capitalist. It works in many places, but it doesn't work every place. And especially when you're going to the places that we talk about here. When I was in Bosnia, I had to get some paperwork done. I couldn't figure out how to get this paperwork in Bosnia to save my life. I just waited, and I took care of it in Vancouver. So that's what I have to say on the topic. I'm curious what you have to say. You can find our article in this, in which I explain more, and I explain why I happen to like Kuala Lumpur. Maybe you will too. That article's at nomadcapitalist.com from this past Monday, and I would encourage you to read it and leave your comments there. Or you can send us an email. My email address is my name. It's andrew@nomadcapitalist.com. That's andrew@nomadcapitalist.com. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I hope that perhaps some of you, maybe you decide that there are ways that you can adapt the PT lifestyle to your own life and not be a slave to any one given place. So I'm looking forward to your comments on that, as always, and we'll be sharing some of your comments and reading some of your questions on a future edition of the Nomad Capitalist Report. I'm Andrew Henderson. Stick with me. James Turk of Goldmoney coming up a little bit later. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report. I'm Andrew Henderson. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Welcome back to the show. Looking forward to your comments, your questions, your suggestions on our topic. What makes a perpetual traveler? And we'd love to hear from you. Hopefully you're already implementing many of these things. I should remind you that the Nomad Society, our private club, gives you access to my field reports, the most in-depth and actionable intelligence that we offer. It's all in the Nomad Society, plus access to our members-only events. We're doing another one, September 6th in Hong Kong, where we'll be meeting and greeting with some of our members, plus doing some presentations, learning some new stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you'll join us there. But your chance to join the club is winding down. August 15th, the price nearly doubles. So if you want to get in on all that information, plus have access to more than 20 hours of video from Passport to Freedom in Las Vegas, this is your chance to do it. Do it now. I'm seeing a lot of comments here on Facebook, on Twitter. We get a lot of feedback from people, as well as my personal email. One gentleman, Matt, writes in and asks, Andrew, what do you think about the situation in Argentina? Well, you got to go to nomadcapitalist.com. I wrote all about it. But with regards to Argentina, let me indulge Matt for a moment. Let me just say this. We live in a world that is increasingly interconnected. That's an understatement. When something happens one place, things echo through to other places. What happens in one country happens in another, and can happen in any number of places. And so I believe what's going on right now in Argentina is a lesson. And you should go to nomadcapitalist.com and read the full article, or better yet, if you're not on our email list at nomadcapitalist.com, we're now sending out every article right to your inbox, so you don't even have to go searching for anything. So get on that email list. It's free. But just to indulge you, what happened in Argentina can happen anywhere, because it has happened other places. A couple months ago, I was in Serbia, which, while it certainly has its fair share of problems, and is probably not the best place to go and set up shop right now, not a bad place to live. Certainly if you're just getting started, you don't have a lot of money, or if you just want to go live somewhere that's kind of interesting, and you want to hang out with lots of beautiful people, Serbia is a great place. And I was talking to some people in Serbia. I mentioned this earlier, but people in Serbia told me stories of their parents who lived through the financial crisis that happened when all the chaos was going on in Yugoslavia in many of our lifetimes. And they talked about how one day they had money in the bank, owned property, had investments, had businesses. And the next day, those things were greatly devalued. Basically, just overnight. The lesson that happened in Serbia, the lesson that happened in Russia during their financial crisis, a decade and a half ago, a little more. The lesson that happened in Greece. The lesson that's now happened in Argentina, 8 times that they've defaulted on their debt since they started issuing debt back about 200 years ago. These things happen all over the world, and what happens? Well, every time one of these debt crises happens, every time some bureaucrat decides that they're going to play chicken, people suffer. People lose their investments. They lose their homes. They lose everything that they have, in many cases. It happened in Serbia. It's happened all over the world. It's like they say. Bankruptcy comes along very slowly, then it happens all at once. And that's what's happened in all these countries all around the world. Yes, some people saw the writing on the wall and they got out because they knew that the conditions that existed in their country were unsustainable. But many people didn't. Many people said, oh, that could never happen here. It'll never get that bad. And they stayed put. They didn't diversify. They kept buying real estate. They kept all their money in the local currency. They figured their government would get them out of whatever problem they were in. They figured it would all be smoothed over. It would all be solved. And in pretty much every instance, they were wrong. So when people ask me, Andrew, what do you think about Argentina? Look, Argentina is an economic basket case. I don't want to get anywhere near it. Argentina, I compare Argentina to Thailand because I think that in both countries people have revolution coursing through their veins. But certainly you can say that Argentina is far worse off and they're going to have a lot of problems once again. The same way they had with the Corralito 13 years ago. This is something that happens in Argentina on a frequent basis. But it also happens all around the world. You may hear these stories. You may forget them. You may forget what happened in Argentina in 6 months or a year and go right back on your merry way. But these stories happen all around the world and real people suffer. Real people go bankrupt. Real people lose everything they have. Real people suffer all kinds of consequences, including the people who get caught up in the riots that ensue when this stuff happens and people go haywire. If your country is on a debt spiral, if your country is arrogant, and thinks it can do whatever it pleases and not suffer any consequences, if your country thinks that its currency can never decline, even though they all have, then you're living in a country, or you're investing in a country, where the conditions are ripe for you to get screwed, and if not go bankrupt, lose a lot of your money and lose a lot of your freedoms. That's what happened in Argentina. It's what happened in the Yugoslavia. It's what happened all around the world. The United States meets all those conditions. Maybe your country does too. If it does, I would get out. Nomad Capitalist Report, nomadcapitalist.com. I'm Andrew Henderson. Offshore gold storage. We talk about it a lot, and we talk about gold a lot, just like what happened in Argentina. Those people, if they didn't own lots of gold, wish they did right now. And it's been a remarkable time in places like that, in places like Greece, in places like all over the world there are stories. And if you're going to own gold, you should keep much of it, in my opinion, offshore. And of course, we talk about how to do that in places like Singapore on our website. You can just go to nomadcapitalist.com and search for how to get free offshore gold storage in Singapore. That's a good place to start. But I wanted to bring on one of the top commentators on this issue. James Turk runs goldmoney.com. They have vaults around the world. And as with anything else, it's always good to diversify. Singapore is a good place, especially our friends in Singapore, the company that we work with, and that's mentioned in that article. With them, you can buy one silver coin, and they'll store it for you for free for 2 years if you come from our site. But if you have a little bit more gold, you want to diversify it around the world, and that's where a service like Gold Money comes into effect. Now, we don't have time for the whole interview with James Turk, so we're going to put the whole 45 minutes with James up on the Nomad Society membership site. And if you haven't joined the Nomad Society, the price is going up on August 15th. We're raising the price, almost doubling it, actually. So if you want to get access to entire interviews with guys like James Turk, and you want to hear what he has to say about the exact ratios that he's owning gold and silver in, where he's storing his gold, all of his specific recommendations, then that's going to be available on the Nomad Society, as well as I recently put up a field report on how I bought gold in Hong Kong at a bank, over the counter, no ID. Not that I'm opposed to showing ID, but that's how it worked. And there's not a lot of places in Hong Kong where you can still do that. So if you want to hear all of that information, then you'll want to be a member of the Nomad Society before the price goes up August 15th. But for now, I do want to welcome James Turk of Gold Money. James, welcome to the Nomad Capitalist Report. Thanks for joining me. Give us an overview of exactly how Gold Money works.
Yeah, we launched in 2001, so we've been operating for 13 years, and we're presently safeguarding about $1.5 billion of precious metals owned by about 23,000 different customers around the world. We're a European-based company, but the storage facilities are in different countries around the world. Canada, UK, Switzerland, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And the key here is that the storage is physical gold, silver, platinum, or palladium, and the ownership is in the name of the individual. What we're doing is acting for the owners, for our customers, safeguarding their gold. And we're doing this in a number of different ways. We have a very strong governance procedure. which includes regular audits. These are available online when you go into your holding. We don't even use the term account because this is not an account. It's a holding. It's gold that you own in these different vaults around the world. Another important part of the governance is we do ultra scanning of all of the gold bars to make certain that there's no foreign material in there and that it's pure gold. But we've grown very well over the years. So we have a very large and satisfied customer base, and we're offering a product that people I think should consider when they want to diversify their assets internationally. And of course, gold and silver, the bedrock asset in anyone's portfolio, and those are the two assets you really don't want to take any risk with at all.
Yeah, I'm doing this from what is it? It's early June here in 2014. So obviously, some of this information in the future will change. But right now, I'm doing this from Montenegro. A lot of Russians come here. I'm looking at palladium, which obviously there's been a big play, not so much now, but in the last couple months with all of what has gone on in Russia with palladium. So you've got the four main metals covered. But I wanted to get into some of the specifics because I've talked to a lot of our members about gold options. There are a lot of them. The first thing is you say you don't like to use the term account. Talk about with what Gold Money does in terms of reporting requirements around the world for U.S. persons as well as for other persons. Do people around the world need to report their Gold Money holdings as a bank account?
Well, what we do, we follow the laws where we're based, which is the island of Jersey in the British Channel Islands.
Right.
And there's no external reporting from the island of Jersey. But we do have in our customer agreement that the customer has to comply with the laws and rules and regulations in the country which he accesses Gold Money, online through the internet. We have customers from over 100 different countries. We can't follow the rules and regulations in each different country, so we put the burden on the customer.
I believe that you said, and I was surprised to hear this because you've lived all over Europe most of your life. You are a U.S. person, am I correct?
I'm American. I've lived in Asia, I've lived in the Middle East, and I presently live in Europe.
Right, but so you're a U.S. Citizen. I mean, obviously we understand that gold held offshore outside of a quote-unquote foreign financial institution, i.e. in a box that when you look at it, it's really no different than a locked box you'd put your luggage in at a train station. You do that, you don't have to report it. But if you have a foreign financial account, that is reportable. Can you speak as a U.S. person as saying, what do Americans need to do if they're working with Gold Money? Does Gold Money issue guidance on that as to whether you are a foreign financial institution that requires reporting for Americans?
Yeah, no, we don't issue any guidance on anything because we're not in the investment guidance business. We're not in the tax advisory business. But the point about an account or a holding is very important. An account is a liability of a financial institution. So, for example, if you put money in a bank, you deposit money in a bank, you have an account at that bank, and they owe that money to you. If you have a car that you drive around Paris in and you park there, that's something that you hold. It's a tangible asset. So what I'm trying to distinguish between is that an account is a financial asset where a holding, which is what we use as terminology in Gold Money, it's a tangible asset. It's physical metal that you actually own.
Talk about the specific kinds of metal that people can own. I know that obviously we talk a lot about gold coins and which kind of gold coins people should talk about. There's a video in our members area about what are some of the opinions of people as to which coins maybe are more international. You don't really work in coins. You talked about bars, and I believe you pretty much have just the same kind of larger bar. People own a piece of those bars. Am I correct? How does that work?
Yeah, we have the London Good Delivery Bar, which weighs approximately 400 ounces. Plus, we also offer kilo bars and 100-gram bars of gold. Silver, we do the standard 1,000-ounce London Good Delivery Bar. And the point here is that when you're buying gold or when you're buying silver, you want to get the best possible rate or the most gold or silver for your money. So you have to watch very carefully what the premium is over the spot price that you're paying. This premium is for the fabrication of the bar, the shipping of the bar, the handling of the bar, and all of those types of things. And the smaller the weight of gold being fabricated, the higher the fabrication cost as a percent of that weight of gold. So, you can buy a 100-gram bar, but the premium over spot is going to be higher than purchasing a portion of an LBMA good delivery bar.
Right. So obviously, if someone just goes online, and unfortunately, the United States is one of the more developed markets for buying gold online. There's 10 million guys who sell it. And you can go and look at, a Canadian maple leaf 1 ounce, gold coin. Maybe it's $29.99, $34.99, whatever over spot price. And then you look at, a huge bar or even a smaller bar that's just kind of from some, non-sovereign mint. And the premium there is lower. I've often told people, pay the extra premium. You'll recoup it when you sell it. But, you're paying a premium for something that's more recognizable. Obviously, someone is not... they're buying from you and they're selling to you, so it's not like they have to assume the risk of going out and selling their gold on the market. So I guess that reduces that issue when it comes to using gold money. But 400-ounce gold bars, obviously the average person's not going to own an entire bar to themselves. Explain that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you're getting at the issue. What do you do with your gold when you purchase it? I recommend that you have some nearby. Don't store it in a bank. Don't store it in bank safe deposit boxes, because I don't believe them to be safe, for the reason that banks are controlled by the state. If the state controls the bank, they control what's in the bank, including a safe deposit box. So I always recommend, if you're going to have some at home, keep it at home, but store it in a safe way. Now, the point is that if you're a wealthier individual and you want to buy a 400-ounce bar, you're not going to store that at home, because you're talking about, quite a considerable sum of money, $500,000 in one bar. You're going to want to have that professionally stored for you somewhere around the world. But if you do have it professionally stored, you want to have the governance procedures to make certain that that gold bar is always there, it's always in your name, and you're protected in that way. So at the end of the day, Andrew, what people have to do is first decide why they're getting into gold. If you're a trader or a speculator, you can buy paper gold things, futures and options and ETFs and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But if you're looking for a safe haven, you have to own physical metal. And there's two ways to do that. You buy it and you store it yourself, or you buy it and have someone store it for you professionally. And I say, if you start, both of those alternatives have advantages and disadvantages, and I actually recommend both. But if you are storing it professionally, you want to make sure that the governance procedures are in place so that you know that your money is always safe.
So let me just go back. I'm looking at, for example, gold. If I want to buy up to $10,000 in gold, you'll charge me a 2.5% premium. Goes down to about 1% at the $1 million U.S. mark. Let's say I'm buying $10,000 in gold. How are you allocating my share of that 400-ounce gold bar?
Yeah, well, the bar has so many grams in it, and we take this down to 3 decimal places, so it's a fraction of a gram. A gram is about $40 US at the moment, and it goes down 3 decimal places, so we're talking about down to a penny level. What we do is we, in effect, digitalize that bar. We have a record keeping as to who owns this specific bar. The bar is allocated in the vault. It's specifically identified, but you as a customer know that you own part of that bar, and if you want to sell it, we will sell that part of the bar for you so that you can go back into national currency and then have your proceeds remitted to any of your bank accounts anywhere in the world.
But no one can come to your vault, whether it's in Singapore, Hong Kong, Canada, Switzerland, UK. No one can come and say, give me my part of a bar, or you know what, give me a gold nugget, or give me a coin. Nobody can do that. They have to basically trade, not only buying from you, but selling back to gold money as well.
Well, no, they can come and take a 400-ounce bar, they can take a kilo bar, or they can take a 100-gram bar. But we don't deal in smaller transactions than that.
Right, so if someone just puts in, $5,000 and that's all they have, obviously if they put money into, maybe if they put money into silver, there would be other options for them. But if they're in gold, platinum, palladium, basically they're assuming the risk perhaps of selling back to gold money if they can't pick up a sizable enough bar.
That's true, but we don't charge any commission when they sell. We always sell at the spot rate. We've done that since day one.
Right. Talk about the facilities. Viamat in Switzerland said we don't want U.S. persons coming here. Are all of your facilities open to pretty much all customers, or do you run into problems with that? Since you are the
No,
intermediary?
the facilities are open to all customers. These vaults deal basically with institutional players. They don't deal with the retail market. And so when Viamat made that announcement, they're basically saying they don't want to get involved because they don't have the capacity or the back office operations to do the paperwork necessary at the retail level.
Right, and so Singapore, Malka, Amit, I've been there. I've been in the vault. They also rent boxes for someone who wants to spend whatever it is, $200 a year, and just throw their coins in a safe deposit box. You're obviously in their segregated storage in the vault, and it's your storage, and Goldmoney's responsible. Let me just play and I want to move on to some of your predictions in the market here, but just let me kind of clarify. As the devil's advocate, someone says, well, I'm adding a layer of counterparty risk dealing with gold money versus storing in my backyard, or, obviously there's counterparty risk storing it in, say Das Safe in Vienna, but at least I figure I can get in a plane, I can go to Das Safe, and as long as the place isn't burned to the ground, I can get in.
Yeah, first of all, it's not counterparty risk, it's performance risk.
Well,
and let
sure.
me explain this. Counterparty risk means that it would be an obligation on Goldmoney's balance sheet to pay.
Yes.
Like if you have money in a bank, the bank is your counterparty, and you have counterparty risk that the bank goes out of your deposit. If Goldmoney were to go under, which it's a solid company, but if it ever were, you would still have your gold in the vault. You have performance risk in the sense that what we say in our customer agreement on the website is what our performance guarantee is. If we don't do that, that's where the risk becomes. But what we have are these governance procedures, including the third-party audits and things of that nature, to show that the performance risk has been mitigated as much as is possible to provide our customers with assurances of integrity that their precious metals are safe. And I think that's the reason why we've grown so rapidly over the past 13 years.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Lastly, when it comes to storing these metals, storage fees, obviously, there's the round-trip transaction cost. You're saying there's only a one-way transaction cost on the buy side. People who are storing, oftentimes, some of these facilities, especially a more expensive one like DOS Safe, can really eat up a lot of capital. Some of these, are 1 or 2%. Your fees on gold are what, about 10 or 12 to 18 basis points?
12 basis points, that's right.
For most of the facilities. Do you have a preference in terms of where you're storing your gold? Obviously, a lot of Americans look at Canada and say, that's basically just the 51st state. UK seems like it's kind of, in my mind, further ahead of the U.S. in totalitarianism in some regards. Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong. Do you recommend any of these above others?
Yeah, my preference and what my recommendation is to diversify. Again, the future is unpredictable, and the best way to deal with the unpredictable aspect of that is to diversify as much as possible to mitigate your risk. And what I've lived in Asia for most of the 1970s, so I'm quite comfortable with that part of the world. But recently I've been accumulating with storage in Hong Kong and in Singapore, just to again make sure that I'm fully diversified in terms of where my gold is stored.
James Turk, Gold Money, one of the many options out there. And again, you have to be careful when you do this stuff, that if you are a U.S. person or another person who comes from an oppressive financial regime, that you're making sure that whatever you're storing your gold, that it does not meet the qualifications of being within the banking system, because then you got to report it. So talk to your professionals as always. James Turk, Gold Money, thanks for joining me. I'm Andrew Henderson. Don't forget, put it on your calendars. Passport to Freedom, our encore presentation of what was the best attended event in the offshore world. We're doing another one. January 15th, 16th, and 17th, plus an exclusive Sunday presentation on the 18th of January, only for Nomad Society members and VIPs. So make sure to mark those dates on your calendar. This is one event you will not want to miss, and it's the only event we hold every year that's open to the general public.